Where to trade the big bear. On today's episode, we'll look at the top landing spots for the Atlanta Braves if they decide to move Marcell Ozuna at the trade deadline. So let's get into it.
You are Locked On Braves, your daily Atlanta Braves podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, and welcome back to Locked On Braves, part of Locked On Sports Atlanta, where we cover your favorite Atlanta sports teams each and every day. I'm your host, Jake Mastroianni. You can follow me on social media at shortstopball. Check out the podcast there at LockedOn_Braves on X and Locked On Braves on Instagram. If you're new and you're watching this on YouTube, please do me a huge favor. Hit that subscribe button, hit the thumbs up button, and leave me a comment down below. And if you're listening on the audio version, you can help out. Just leave me a 5-star review on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcast. If you think that's a lot to try to help me out, well, hey, you get to listen to this for free. And that's how we grow the community here at Locked On Braves. So I do appreciate all your support on this channel. And again, thank you so much for making Locked On Braves your first listen up each and every day. It's going to be a rough second half of the season, no doubt about it. So stick in there with me. We'll try to make it as entertaining, as fun as humanly possible. And the next week or so should be pretty fun with the trade deadline. And that's what we're going to focus on today. Look at the top landing spots for Marcell Ozuna and where the Braves could trade him. There was a rumor on maybe one potential spot for the Braves to trade Ozuna, and the Padres. We'll look at that. In today's episode, we'll also recap the Giants series, which was just a big bunch of stink. Was the only way that I can describe it, especially those final two games. So we'll get into all that on today's episode of Locked On Braves, which is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. As I said on today's podcast, we're going to focus mainly on Marcell Ozuna trade possibilities, teams that he could be a fit for, and we'll discuss the one rumor by Hector Gomez on where the Braves essentially could be trading him, or at least where rumors say he could be moving. And I'll talk about the validity of that rumor. You can probably tell by my posturing that I just don't put too much stock into it. But again, we'll discuss that later. Let's start by looking at the top trade fits for Marcell Ozuna, just going through the contenders out there. The Dodgers, no, they have Ohtani, so definitely not there. The Phillies, no, they have Kyle Schwarber. The Astros, no, they got Yordan Alvarez coming back, and he's likely going to be in that DH spot every day. For the Cubs, I think the Cubs are a maybe. You look at who they've had in that spot recently, it's Justin Turner. Unless I'm missing somebody, I just don't see a definite DH there. For the Cubs, you could probably put Seiya Suzuki in there some and maybe get an upgrade defensively in the outfield. So they're a maybe for me. Still probably not likely, but we'll put the Cubs at a maybe for a landing spot for Marcell Ozuna. The Rays, probably not for money reasons. Again, Marcell Ozuna still owed a pretty good bit the rest of the way. They also have plenty of guys that they move in and out of that spot, and the Rays have kind of hit a lull here recently after the big hot streak that they have, so I don't know how aggressive they'll be at the deadline. The Giants, I would say no, unless, like we just saw in this past series against the Giants, if they are able to move Rafael Devers into first base, that does open up the possibility of the Giants trading for Marcell Ozuna. So I put no originally, but Devers, again, just in the series that we witnessed, it looks like he's more open to playing first base and making that transition, which would make the Giants a more desirable destination for Marcell Ozuna. So definitely got to think about that one. Maybe there are some talks happening here in Atlanta over the past couple of days. Although I don't know how good it looks if you're the Giants and you're playing the Braves and the Braves are getting clobbered and their offense looks as bad as it did in the last two games and Marcell Ozuna is sitting on the bench. Is that really a guy that you want to go trade for? The Yankees, no, they have Stanton in there. The Brewers are a no. They have Yelich in there most days, but also Contreras as well when he's not catching. The Reds are one of the teams I identified early on as a possibility for Marcell Ozuna. Got Gavin Lux or Austin Hayes that they've had in that DH spot. I think Marcell Ozuna, could obviously, as any big power hitter, could do good things in that ballpark. I also just don't know how aggressive the Reds are going to be at the deadline, but they're a team that I've had circled for a little bit as a possible landing spot for Marcell Ozuna. The Cardinals, doubtful they'd want to go down the Marcell Ozuna path again. They do have a couple of DH guys in Nolan Gorman and Alec Burleson, who are on the injured list right now, but should be coming back. And I just don't know that the Cardinals will be huge buyers at the deadline. The Mets are a maybe for me. Seems unlikely that those two teams would make a trade and the Braves, help the Mets try to win a World Series. But right now they got Vientos in their DH spot. He has a 626 OPS. I feel like Ozuna might be a pretty good fit for the New York Mets and helping out their offense and their DH spot. So again, seems crazy, but that is one of the places, one of the teams where you look at it that I think he would be a fit. The Padres are a maybe for me. And again, we'll get to that rumor here in a second that involves the Padres. They've been using Gavin Sheets and Jake Cronenworth there. I do think they're a possibility, certainly, the Padres, and we know how active A.J. Preller can be. The Diamondbacks are a doubtful for me. The Blue Jays, it might, depending on the health of Anthony Santander, who is expected to be out through August, last report that I saw. I think it's a situation where the Blue Jays, maybe you're going to get Santander back, and if he's back, he's going to be in that DH spot. But maybe you go and get an Ozuna now that's probably not going to cost you a lot, and you can kind of insert him into that DH spot until Santander comes back. And even when he does come back, you at least, you got a couple of veteran bats there for your lineup. So I think the Blue Jays are a maybe as well. The Red Sox are a no. They already have too many bats. They're trying to figure out how to play. Why they traded a Devers, but they got a lot of young kids as well. I mean, they could send some of those kids down and put Ozuna in there, but I put a no for the Red Sox. The Tigers are a possible for me. It's been a revolving door at DH for them, but it's hard to see kind of without following them every day if they do that just because they'd like the flexibility of a DH. And if they would be against getting somebody like an Ozuna because it would kind of take away some of the flexibility of their lineup. The Guardians are a yes for me if they are buyers, but I'm not very confident they're going to be buyers. The Royals are doubtful. They have Vinny, they have Jack, and they have Salvi, all for that kind of first base, catcher, DH, right field, where they're all trying to fit them in kind of spots. The Mariners are probably not for me. They have Jorge Polanco, who seems to be doing well in that spot. Plus, they got to put Cal Raleigh in that DH spot on days when he doesn't catch. So the Mariners are probably a no for me. And the Rangers, who the Braves are about to play, if they are buyers and dependent on the health status of Jock Peterson, I think they could be a good fit for Marcell Ozuna. The health of Jock Peterson's been kind of strange. I don't really know where he is, what the timeline for him is. Seemed like he was close to coming back and then had a setback. So that could certainly play into it because Jock has to be a DH, as does Marcell Ozuna. So that could play into it. But I think Marcell would be a good fit for that team. So I look at the teams that I think make the most sense, and it's the Reds, the Mets, the Blue Jays, the Padres, the Tigers, Guardians, and Rangers. And like I said, of that group, I don't know how aggressive the Reds are going to be in buying. I think the Tigers kind of like the way that their DH spot is fluid. I don't think the Guardians are going to be buyers. I don't know that the Rangers are going to be buyers. So you take out those teams, and I think the most likely are the Mets, the Blue Jays, and the Padres. I think if Marcell Ozuna is to get traded, I think it's to, if I had to predict right now, I'd say it's to one of those three teams, the Mets, the Padres, or the Blue Jays. I think make the most sense right now. All right, next, I'll get into that rumor from Hector Gomez, which involves the Padres. I'll also get to some of your comments as well. You talked about where you think Marcell Ozuna could land. We'll get into that here next. Ever wish managing your money felt easier? With Monarch Money, it can. Whether you're growing your savings or planning a big purchase, Monarch puts you in the driver's seat. It's like having your own personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. And Monarch Money is more than a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So in addition to managing your money, you're also building wealth. Managing money with your partner is smoother than ever. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without all the stress. Don't try to add any more stress to your life, certainly not to your marriage. I can tell you from firsthand experience, about coming up on 10-year anniversary for me and my wife. taking care of the finances, making sure you're on the same page, having that all managed can go a long way in your relationship. So do yourself a favor and check out Monarch Money and take control of your finances. Use our code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com and you're going to get 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONMLB for half off your first year. Thank you as always. Make it Locked On Braves your first listen of each and every day. Go check out Locked On MLB for your second listen of the day. We're slowly getting you caught up on everything happening around Major League Baseball and the guys at MLB Game Night, talking about the biggest highlights from around Major League Baseball. Maybe you're done watching the Braves, as I've had many people tell me right now, but you still want to come back and listen to them. Listen to me here first, and then go check out Locked On MLB to see the other teams that are playing good baseball around the major league. So make sure you check them out. Plus, you'll get the MLB Squad Show here at Locked On Braves as well. And you'll also get the postcast with me and Lindsay here in your Locked On Braves podcast feed. I'll have another trade episode coming tomorrow. We'll take a deep dive into some other trade possibilities, look at some mock trades, and then we'll have our mailbag episode on Friday. So that's what's coming your way the rest of the week here at Locked On Braves. So let's get into this rumor. Had a lot of people talking on Tuesday. Hector Gomez said that on Tuesday that trade talks have intensified between the Padres and Braves around Marcell Ozuna. And he even mentioned that the Padres would trade their number 18 and number 21 prospects. This had a lot of people buzzing, a lot of people tagging me in that, saying, how legit is this? Mark Bowman of MLB.com kind of shot it down and said, as far as he knows, that haven't been any talks between the Padres and the Braves. Look, here's the thing. Braves don't leak information in the first place. Braves beat writers are usually the last to know. Hector Gomez is hit or miss with the things that he says. And I always take his tweets with a big grain of salt. Yes, he's been right on some things in the past, and he's hit on some pretty big news in the past. So I don't completely dismiss it. However, I will say this. And I don't know how good these prospects are. He mentioned the number 18 and number 21 prospects for the Padres. If you got any team right now that's willing to give you two of their top 30 prospects, that deal needs to be done immediately. I don't even care if the Braves are having to eat some money in that deal. You need to be doing that deal immediately. So the reason I do kind of dismiss this rumor from Hector Gomez is because if that's what the Padres were willing to trade, then the deal should have been done already. I've talked about it a lot. When trying to trade Marcell Ozuna right now, and you can look at a Savant page and everything looks pretty good. It's in red and all of that, but it's so difficult because you're trying to trade a guy who has about $7 million left on his deal the rest of the year, the final 2 months of the season. And you're looking at a guy that, one, is not playing every day on a team that is struggling for offense. You're looking at a guy that's hitting .235 this year with a .390 slug after slugging over .500 the last 2 years. It is a .361 on base. He is getting on base. He's taking his walks, but he's not hitting for a ton of power. 13 home runs this year, 64 walks to 89 strikeouts. And it's an everyday DH. I mean, you only have one place that you can put him in, that's at DH. And it really pigeonholes a lot of what you can do. So as I mentioned, some of those teams that maybe already have some guys that like to get in that DH spot, maybe they like to have their DH spot a little bit more fluid, as I'm kind of hoping the Braves do going forward. They're immediately going to be out on a guy like Ozuna. So look, I think Ozuna can still be a good bat. You look at his expected batting average, it's .262. I definitely think he's underperformed this year and has probably had a lot of bad luck in there. And I think he can be a useful bat for a contending team. But you're trying to trade a guy who only can play at DH, has a good bit of money tied to him, and is a rental player. You just can't be expecting much in return for Marcell Ozuna. So if there's a team out there that's willing to give you two legitimate prospects, that deal needs to be done. So it's just hard for me to really take that rumor from Hector Gomez as legitimate. Look, if it happens, I'll give him all the credit in the world and I will be ecstatic, because for me, trading Marcell Ozuna, as I've said several times now, it's not so much about getting anything from Marcell Ozuna. It's just about freeing up a spot for both Drake Baldwin and Sean Murphy the rest of the way to see what those two can do playing every day, and for splitting up their time in the catcher's role and what that looks like, because that might be your future. That might be 2026 for you, and possibly even beyond that, with those two guys being locked up for a while. So it's not, for me, it's not about getting any big return from Marcell Ozuna. It's just trading Marcell Ozuna, period, to try to open up a spot for Drake Baldwin and Sean Murphy. But if you can move them and get something of somewhat value in return, that's an even bigger win for the Atlanta Braves. So again, if that trade were on the table and Alex Anthopoulos didn't just immediately grab it, say thank you, and hang up the phone real quick and start celebrating, I'd be very, very surprised. But let me know your thoughts in the comments section below. Would you do that deal immediately if you were Alex Anthopoulos and the Atlanta Braves? I did ask some of you what you thought the top landing spots were for Marcell Ozuna, and Joey said the Mariners, Brandon Garcia and Michael Morales, guys that he would go after. I just think the Mariners, they're going to want to put Cal Raleigh there whenever they can. Look, it also kind of depends on what the team trading for Marcell Ozuna views him as. Do they view him as a guy that they're going to have to plug in every day in their DH, or a guy that maybe they're going to mix and match and not play him every single day, too, which is what I think probably the right approach is. Caleb Coos says Reds would crush it. Great American ballpark. Tigers, Padres, Mariners. Go back to Seitzer, who he crushed for. I thought about that too, if they did go to the Mariners, and also mentioned the Rangers. So those are some teams definitely on my list that I think he could go to. Scott says the Giants, Devers at first base, and then boom. I think that's a definite possibility if Devers is making that moves. Zach says the Tigers. Some other teams I know, Elon says the Padres. He rakes there. I think they're a good spot, obviously, even despite the rumor. I think it could be a good spot. AAWX says, I'd say Padres are probably option 1. I would give the Rangers 2 and the Giants 3 if they go ahead and move Devers to first base. So some of you going with that as well. Some of you tagging me in the Hector Gomez report on that tweet as well. Thomas B saying Mariners or Tigers. Jay saying San Diego. Gus saying the Padres as well. So I don't know if all that's kind of just being rooted out from the tweet from Hector Gomez, but a lot of the teams that you said are the same ones that I came up with too. And I think that's going to be the most likely landing spot for Marcell Ozuna if the Braves do indeed trade him. And look, could have seen his last at bat in Truist Park on Wednesday in what was another pretty miserable game for Atlanta Braves fans. Not a lot of positives to take out of those games, but I'll do my best to give you some of those positives here next. If you're running a business, you know that every missed call is money left on the table. Think about the last time you had a service emergency, like a burst pipe in your home. If the first plumber didn't answer, did you wait? No, you called the next one. That's why having a reliable business line is so important, and that's why you need OpenPhone. OpenPhone is the #1 business phone system that helps you streamline and scale customer communication, all from an app on your phone or computer. Do you juggle 2 phones just to keep business and personal calls separate? OpenPhone helps solve that instantly. Your whole team can share one number and respond to customers like a shared inbox. So no more asking who's handling this call, who handled the last one. You know exactly who's getting them. And the AI agent handles after-hours calls, answers common questions, and captures leads so you never miss a customer again. OpenPhone is offering Locked On Braves listeners 20% off your first 6 months at openphone.com/LockedOnMLB. That's OpenPhone.com/LockedOnMLB. And if you have existing numbers with another service, OpenPhone will port them over at no extra charge. OpenPhone, no missed calls, no missed customers. Unfortunately, we still have games on the field to talk about. I say that in jest. Look, I'm a big Braves fan. I love this team, and I will watch them even in the worst possible conditions. But it is tough to watch this team right now with all the injuries in the rotation. And I thought we had this offense figured out. I bought in, maybe for the first time in a long time, I bought into this offense with the change of putting Baldwin and Murphy back in, with all the runs we saw scored over the past week. I had really bought into this offense. And then you had the clunker on Sunday, which you kind of, could see coming, but then you came back and scored a bunch on Monday, but then you had Tuesday and Wednesday in this Giant series where the offense was just back to its frustrating ways, getting shut out on Tuesday and then somehow letting Justin Verlander off the hook on Wednesday after making him throw 40 pitches in the first inning and not scoring a run, but then allowing him to get through 5 innings without scoring a run and only allowing 1 hit. I just don't understand how that happens. They did later score 3 runs when the game was essentially over at that point, but not being able to get to Justin Verlander early in that game and at least fight back in that game or put some runs on the board, because Strider didn't give up anything until the 5th inning, just blows my mind. And I have tried to hang on for so long with this team and just fully believed at some point they're going to go on a hot streak. At some point they're going to go 12-3. And, just have one of those runs. Even if they don't get back into the postseason conversation, I feel like this team should still be good enough that at some point they go on a run. We even see the worst teams in baseball at times go on a good run. And we've yet to see that from this Braves team, which is just wild to me, because talent-wise, I still believe this is one of the most talented teams in baseball. But something team-wise is just not there and not clicking. Don't know exactly what it is, but it's just not there. When you have a team that has lost 7 of their last 9 series, there's a split in there. So they won just 1 of their last 9 series. They won just 4 series over the last 2 months. Like, how dreadful does it have to be as a fan when for a 2-month stretch, a team that you're expecting to be good and play well has won just 4 series over a 2-month span? They had 8 series wins through May 18th. You remember that first part of the season where it was so bad? They had the 0-7 start. They had 8 series wins through the first month and a half of the season. They have 4 total series wins since then over the last 2 months. They had twice as many series wins in the first month and a half of the season than they've had over the last 2 months. And again, I have tried to hold on to hope that the talent will finally play out and this team will go on a run. I don't know how much more evidence it's going to take for me and others out there that are still holding on to hope that it's just a bad team. They may be talented. There may be some talented players in here, but it's just a bad team, because good teams don't lose that many series. They don't go that long without series wins, and it's just a bad team, and there's going to need to be a lot of reconfiguring in the offseason. I do not think they're going to completely blow it up. There's still some really good pieces here. I still believe there's a really good core here, but something fundamentally has to change. I think there's going to be coaching changes. We'll obviously get into that, and that's going to be part of it. But I think personnel-wise, player-wise, some things are going to have to be shaken up too, because it's deeper than that with what we've seen from this Braves team. As Strider admitted after the game on Wednesday, it's just embarrassing. And you're absolutely right, Spencer. There's really no other way to describe this team other than that it's embarrassing. It's a bad team. 4 series wins in the last 2 months. And I mentioned that they had 8 series wins, leading up to May 18th, and they were a game over 500 at that point. And since that point, the last 2 months, they've had 4 series wins. And that's why I talked about it the other week, that this team had survived. They had come through the early season struggles. They had gotten back to where they wanted to, but it's really been since that May 18th that they have just completely fallen apart and not being able to. And the other frustrating thing too is that this recent streak, these last 9 series, where I said they only have 1 series win, it comes on the heels of them sweeping the New York Mets in a very, exciting series that they had at home. The big play from Ronald Acuna Jr. And now you've won 1 series in your last 9. And that's just very, very frustrating as a fan. I said I was going to try to be positive, and I put a lot of negative in there. But the pitching in this series, Strider just didn't have his fastball command on Wednesday. Still got through 4 innings scoreless, and then gave up a couple of home runs in that 5th inning. The one from Devers, was barely off the ground. Just insane ability to be able to do that, but just didn't have his good command in this one for whatever reason. Still was able to get through 5 innings, 3 runs, but as your top starter right now and a guy that you're expecting to be a top of the rotation guy and has pitched like that for the most part over the last month plus, just wasn't his best performance in this one. Davis Daniel in the game on Tuesday, like, he might get one more start, but I'd be surprised we see much more than that from Davis Daniel before we see a chance from, Hurston Waldrop, J.R. Ritchie, Blake Burkhalter, one of the guys at AAA, I think, has to take that spot here pretty soon just to see what they can do. For the bullpen, Dodd was back up, but he had a rough outing on Wednesday. He's certainly a guy that I want to watch the rest of the way, see if he can be a big piece, but not a great one for him on Wednesday. Now I'm going to get to the positives. Try my best from the rest of the season to really just focus on the positives in each game and in each series, despite the results. So you look at the positives in this series. Dylan Lee struck out the side on Wednesday. Iglesias struck out 2 in a clean 9th inning, kind of help his trade value, even though they were lower leverage situations. But still, when people look at the stats, they're going to see, he had a clean inning with 2 strikeouts. So those are some positives there. Profar had 3 hits and 3 walks in this series. Also got hit by a pitch, raised his on-base percentage from 269 to 301. So that's good to see there, especially if he's going to continue to be in that leadoff spot. You want to see him be able to get on base. So I thought that was encouraging there for Profar. Matt Olson, 5 hits and 4 walks in this series, including 3 on Wednesday, which just happens to coincide with the fact that Acuna wasn't hitting behind him in this one, but Drake Baldwin was, and Baldwin had a pretty good series too. 4 hits, 1 walk, but 8 runs batted in, including 6 in the first game of the series and 2 on Wednesday. So Drake Baldwin overall with a good game and continuing to try to increase his odds at winning the NL Rookie of the Year. I know Jacob Mizorowski had a good outing on Tuesday night. I watched a lot of that, 7 strikeouts in 4 innings. They are limiting his innings. So maybe that helps Baldwin in his case for Rookie of the Year. And then Michael Harris, he had 3 hits in the final 2 games, had some hard hits in Monday's game. Actually, the contact in Wednesday's game wasn't nearly as great as it had been, but good to see him at least getting some results in the last couple of games with 3 hits. And Nacho was really impressive defensively at third base. I don't know exactly what his future is going to be on this team. And to me, it's very similar to the Vaughn Grissom situation where I kept saying, hold on to him unless you just get a top of the rotation arm. And the Braves did. I don't think there's even that much value here for Nacho, but I still have that same sentiment where I wouldn't trade Nacho unless you're getting something pretty significant, because I just think he's going to be important as a utility player. Maybe he gets some years as a starter, but I think just having in the future, and he's still young, he's still just 22 years old, so I don't know that I'm ready to completely transition him to being that bench utility type guy. But I do think there's a future for him on this team as that utility guy that can play some short, can play some second, can play some third for you across the infield. The bat's still not quite where I would like it to be. Almost got a home run off Verlander on Wednesday. The bat just still hasn't translated from what we've seen in the minors to the majors yet, although it's better this time around than it was last time. How could it not be? But the defense that he's shown at third base has been very, very impressive. And I really think he has a role on this team going forward, even if it's not as a starter, to be kind of a super utility guy that can play, second, short, and third for you. All right, as far as the news front, Riley obviously didn't get activated for the end of the Giants series. He's still having some discomfort, but could be activated this weekend in Texas. And again, with where the season is, just no reason to rush anybody back from injury at this point. The Braves announced that they did sign all of their draft picks. Hopefully we see them in pro ball soon. I'll definitely let you know when we do our weekly minor league spotlight if we see any of those guys in pro ball. Ronald Acuna didn't play on Wednesday, primarily due to the fact that it was such an early game after a night game and just an opportunity to rest him for 2 full days. So nothing injury-wise there, but just felt like a good time. And again, no real reason to push him at this point with where the Braves are in the season. Their next series is against the Texas Rangers. They've only lost 1 series this month, so very different than what the Braves have experienced. And they're back in the postseason picture. They're 7.5 out in the AL West, but just 1.5 games out of the wild card. Braves are going to send out Joey Wentz, Grant Holmes, and Bryce Helder in this series. Just reading those names is very depressing. The Rangers are going to send out Rocker, Latz, and Leiter, so could get a couple of young ones. You could also see DeGrom pitch on Sunday in this series. If he pitched on Tuesday, looked really good, 6 innings, just 86 pitches, had 9 strikeouts, only allowed 3 hits. So if the Rangers wanted to be really cruel, they could, skip a guy in their rotation and throw DeGrom on Sunday against the Braves, but you'll likely see some combination of Rocker, Latz, and Leiter. Corey Seager has an OPS over 1,000 his last 2 weeks. I would love to see Dylan Dodd get an opportunity against him. Again, like I said, I want to see really what he can do against some lefties the rest of the way to see if he's a legitimate option in the bullpen going forward. Kyle Higashioka, Marcus Semien, and Adolis Garcia have been swinging the bat well too over the last couple of weeks. And hey, we're in that spoiler role now. Yay, isn't that fun? That's what we all wanted to do and see the rest of the way. So that's what the Braves will be trying to do when they take on the Rangers in Arlington over the weekend. And we'll be back for the postcast in that series. So make sure you subscribe to Locked On Braves, where you can get that postcast between me and Lindsay and other great content that we have for you here at Locked On. Make sure you're subscribed to Locked On Braves on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast. Make sure that you rate, review, and subscribe to the Locked On Braves podcast, and we will talk to you next time.